With the recent release of Group Ironman mode RS3, I think it's just a little too late for this mode to actually take off. The unfortunate truth now is it's been way too long since they promised the release of this mode, and longer yet from when they initially informed us that they were developing this game mode. This game mode was promised to us almost 5 years ago at this point, and to make matters worse, old school RuneScape released their Group Ironman mode 3 years ago. The actual hype around the release of old school RuneScape's Group Ironman mode was insane. You had so many people playing it, you had even more people coming back to the game to play with their friends, and more importantly, these people are still playing this game today, 3 years later. If RuneScape 3 would have released this mode back with old school, they could have jumped on the hype of that, but they didn't. They just kept delaying it. And I know they kept having, technical difficulties with group storage and how to share these augmented items, but still the fact that they're 3 years behind old school is kind of a negative at this point. I know the end goal for RS3 is to hopefully get more players to come into the game, or at least have the current player base make new accounts and continue to pay membership for the long haul. I just don't see that happening this late into the game. One of the reasons I don't see a lot of these new players sticking around, even if they do come, is the early game of RuneScape 3 is really just a grind, and it's boring, it's out of date. It's not like old school where it's, technically the feel of the game. This insane grind that you have to do to even start to do all the new content that's coming out is going to make people not want to play. And I know the main reason they had Fresh Start Worlds was to combat that experience, but that was with all these XP boosts and everything, and they still haven't really showed us how many people, stayed around or how many new people played. A lot of those players were current players, and that's okay because current players paying for more membership is obviously a win in their book. But the real problem is here, you're just not getting a lot of these new players to come over and play. I do know a lot of those old school players are probably going to come over and try Group Ironman mode, which is great. I think playing both modes is awesome. I still play old school from time to time, and I know a lot of RS3 players still play old school from time to time. But I just don't see those players staying, especially when they have Group Ironman mode on old school that has already had 3 years of progress and they've already been grinding for this long. I know there's a lot of Ironman content creators that are going to jump into this game and have expressed interest in playing this game, but almost all of them have kind of left it to just one or two initial grinds or to be the first to do something. And the reason I think that is because technically Group Ironman mode is not really an Ironman mode. It's more of what the main game is, except for you and your group of friends have to just go and gather some items together. Yes, technically it's an Ironman mode, but it kind of defeats the purpose of what Ironman is, and that is going out and gathering all this resources, all the items that you need for yourself. And Group Ironman to me is not something that means Group Ironman mode. I honestly wish they would have just dropped the Iron in, but that's just my personal opinion. I don't think it really matters in the end. Also, another reason I don't see the current Ironman player base coming back to actually play this game mode is almost all these Ironmen are coming up on 10 years with their current accounts. That's 10 years and thousands of hours of grinding for items that I don't know if people are really going to want to go back and get. There's some horrible grinds out there that can take hundreds, if not thousands of hours to get. Okay, maybe not thousands of hours, but being a little dramatic there, but still, they've already sunk thousands of hours into this game mode. I just don't see a lot of players wanting to do that all over again, especially if there's going to be an asterisk next to the Ironman name when it's a group Ironman and not you yourself individually. With all that being said, there's still a lot of players that are playing group Ironman mode, and they still play the main Ironman game mode as well. I think they still prioritize their personal Ironman accounts over the group Ironman accounts, but that's just the same thing that's going to happen in RS3. I just don't know if there's going to be a large following for the group mode here in the future with the current Ironman player base. There is a group of players I do see jumping back in this game, and that's a lot of the mainscapers out there. A lot of these players have accounts that are maxed 200 mil, have all these items already comped, trimmed, comped, etc., that have maybe expressed some interest in the Ironman mode, but didn't want to go all the way in because it's you all alone. Or now you can jump in with a couple of your friends and kind of give it a shot and see if you like it or not. Now, I don't think these players are going to necessarily, play for the long haul all the way to the end to where they are currently with their main accounts. But at the same time, I can see them liking to do everything over again and actually having, a chance to make progress. A lot of these players, they don't skill anymore because they already have 200 mil. They don't do any of the bossing because they already have all the items unless they're trying to get money for whatever. But I can see them actually wanting to play this, and it's a new challenge for them. I will be curious to see, though, if this new challenge for these main scapers is after they play the group mode, jump back in and actually make a standard Ironman mode and play on their own. I'm curious to see if that's kind of the route they're going to go, as I do see a lot of main scapers, at least initially, trying to play this game mode. I just don't know how long they're going to last. Unfortunately, there's no chance that this game mode is going to be as popular as Old School's Group Ironman mode. It's just we don't have the player base that Old School has. However, I do see this as hopefully a step towards other game modes in the future, like leagues for RS3. Leagues in Old School RuneScape is one of the most fun times, I think, for not only Old School RuneScape, but just RuneScape 3 and the whole community in general. If I'm not mistaken, I think Leagues is when most of the players jump in from not only RS3, but Old School, but even just people from outside that don't really play RuneScape daily, and to just kind of experience the game. You know, it's a fast track, it's a rush, it's great, it's awesome. And I think this would benefit RS3 drastically. And honestly, I feel like it's something that hopefully they can implement in the future. This wouldn't be the first new mode for RS3, as like you had obviously the Fresh Start Worlds, which I don't think was implemented in the right way. It was with great intentions, but it wasn't implemented in the right way. I think that was more on the line of getting just more money from your current player base to come back, rush some accounts, have some fun, and then obviously make money for their main accounts on the other side. However, the other game mode that they did make was the game mode Darkscape, where you went around and you had these certain zones and you had to PK in those zones. You had certain banks and everything was more dangerous, more loot, everything. And I think Darkscape is what actually made the leagues in the end for Old School, as it's kind of what it is to an extent. Obviously, there's not the PVM aspect of leagues, and I think Old School actually implemented a lot of those same characteristics of Darkscape. And I don't want Darkscape to come back in RS3. I don't think that's a place. I think Old School has a great place, but what I really, really want this game mode to try and do is hopefully influence Jagex to go ahead and do the leagues. I know Old School is starting to have a leagues probably coming up here in November again, and I hope after the success of that and the minor success of Group Ironman mode, RuneScape 3 starts to have their own leagues going forward. Now, this is just all speculation, and it's almost been a week now since the game mode's come out, and there's people still playing the game, which is great. The only way we're going to find out if this game mode is actually going to do something is to honestly just wait and see what happens. I think by Christmas we'll know if there's going to be a lot of players staying at least for the long haul initially, but obviously by the end of next year we'll kind of have to draw back and see actually how many Group Ironman players are still playing, and if it is a lot of new players or just your current player base. In the end, I don't see this as a negative thing. I just am kind of wishing this would have came out at least 3 years ago with Old School, or at least, right on the heels of it instead of 3 years later. But it's just my opinion. I personally am not going to be jumping in on this, as like I still have a lot of grinding to do in my current Ironman. I just currently maxed, so I'm way behind a lot of other people, and I honestly do not want to take another 8 years to max. So personally going to sit this one out, but I am going to follow it, and I hope you guys do too, and hopefully this is a positive for the game in the end, as I personally think it will be.